Today's webinar with Michigan Nonprofit Association. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sarah Pinder. I'm the Resource Services Manager at Michigan Nonprofit Association. We're glad to have you on the call with us today. As you can see from the slides scrolling on your screen, we do still have some upcoming events before the end of 2015, which is getting closer. You might check out, if you're a member and want to learn a little bit more about your member benefits, we have a webinar later this week. We also have a really neat event that's happening on December 3rd in Southfield on impact investing, something the nonprofit sector is starting to learn more and more about and might be a good learning event for your organization. Today's webinar is we are recording it. It is the third webinar in a series of webinars that we've had around the topic of compensation, and today's webinar specifically on goal setting within organizations. As most of us know, goal setting is certainly an important topic and really helps get things done in any organization, but especially nonprofit organizations. You can access the two other webinars of this series in the Member Central area of our website under Webinar Archives. So if you weren't able to join us prior, you can certainly check that out. We will also be hearing a little bit about Constellation HR, which is a new member benefit and service from Donahue Associates that can help with all of these goal setting and very important things. For questions that you may have, please don't hesitate to use the chat function or the question box in your webinar toolbar there. We'll try to take some questions at the end, but right now all participants are muted so that we have the best quality. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead. We have two presenters today, Jim Donahue from Donahue Associates, as well as Jennifer Welch from Donahue Associates, and I am going to go ahead and make Jim the presenter and let him go ahead and take over the presentation and tell us a little bit more about goal setting for executives and organizations.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate the opportunity to provide this webinar to your members today. We're going to go through a PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint will be available to the attendees after, as well as the notes. Just to give you a little background on us, we are a HR human resource consulting firm. We were founded in 1983. We worked with over 250 local and national organizations. About over a little 30% of our clientele does make up of the nonprofit sector. Those of you who may be aware of the American Society of Employers, which is the Employers Association of Southeast Michigan, we've been associated with them since 1985, and we are their principal compensation consultants for their 1,200 members. We're also our licensed distributors of a preview job fit assessment tool. And then recently we took our past experience, knowing that there were some needs in the marketplace, and developed a performance and compensation software program that we called Constellation HR. And then this year we became partners with the Michigan Nonprofit to provide our services to the membership. Jennifer Welch is my senior associate, who's been with me now for about 8 years, and will be doing part of this presentation with us. Okay, as Sarah said, this is third of a three-part series of webinars that we put on. The first one was on executive compensation, specifically in the nonprofit environment. What's the ways of putting together an effective compensation program for executives that will stand up to scrutiny to the IRS or anyone else that looks at it. Then there was an overview on our HR software, and today we're looking specifically at how to set goals in organizations and focusing on nonprofit organizations. Just to give you a sort of an overview, you know, it is important that organizations do set goals, and those who have set goals and follow the goal setting process are significantly more successful, and they show that you know, especially in the profit environment, they are more profitable. And there's a number of studies that had shown that productivity has improved, in some cases 95% to organizations that have a goal-setting program in place. It also has led to an increase in productivity, and again, the organizations that use goal settings do experience a higher success factor and profitability from those who do not. And so, therefore, I mean, you know, goal setting is an effective tool, and we promote it, and we work with most of our members, our clients, to help them put the goals set together. So we're going to go through a process that we have developed over time on what has worked best for us. As compensation consultants, our goal setting process is usually the foundation for incentives and payouts. So we use it as the basis of paying incentives, and some people use the term bonus, but in nonprofits we don't like to use the term bonus, but we use the term incentives. And if you're going to tie your goal sharing program to an incentive program, we would recommend that in your compensation philosophy, strategy, and statement, your written statement, it will mention that the chief executive has a bonus potential. In addition, your board notes should also include that the details of the incentive program and how it relates to the goals and objectives of the organization. Excuse me. Our goal setting process, it does directly correlate and is supported by our Constellation HR performance software. Again, one of the reasons why we developed the software, because it had some need there, and to track and monitor goals was one of the needs that we found was missing. So there are four basic purposes or functions of having organizational goals. And so I'll go through the what we would say the first purpose of it. One is to provide guidance and direction to the organization. It really is their roadmap of how they're going to achieve their mission. The second one is how to facilitate planning. It really lays out what the organization is going to do, how they're going to operate in that upcoming period, and how they're going to attain and their goals for the company. It also is a tool to motivate employees. You provide the goals to employees, you give them the opportunity to achieve those goals. It sets a direction for them as well. And it also is a way of monitoring and their performance and how they're doing. It is a more objective way of saying, are you doing the things that we want you to do? And if you do it, how are you doing it? Are you achieving the goals that we've laid out for you? So it's a higher level of objectivity when it comes to judging performance. Okay, we've laid out a number of what goals of a good performance management program or a goal program. And so if you're going to have a goal program, it certainly needs to be meaningful to the organization. It needs to support the business plan or the mission of the organization. This is usually set at the top level. This is something that your board of directors and your senior staff gets involved in. It needs to be meaningful to the person, meaning that the individual who's going to be given the challenge of achieving goals, they need to be able to have the ability to control their work that supports supports the goals. The goals need to be realistic. If you give them unrealistic goals, they're going to be frustrated, and then it's going to fail. And it needs to be easier to administer. And one of the downfalls of goal programs is that it makes it more difficult. And it's so difficult, they don't administer it, and it fails. And so, again, one of the reasons we developed our software was to make goal-setting process and the performance process easy. And then we need to be able to recognize and reward good performance. If we're going to challenge the organization to have a goal and we want them to achieve that goal, what does the results look like? And it needs to be easily identified that when I do it, I know it. And we do it, the board knows it. And if we're going to use it as a way of incentivizing the staff and the CEO, they need to be able to have the ability to recognize when you achieve the goals. And then each individual or group in the organization should have an individualized performance plan that supports the goals of the organization. And then, again, we would normally link the reward program to compensation. And then we'll go into detail how we have done this and how we would suggest you doing this in your organization. Okay, there are 7 steps in setting goals. First step would be establishing organizational goals. This is, again, the top level. These are the strategic goals for the organizations that are normally set by the board, or certainly with the majority of the board participation in, and the senior staff. From there, then we said, okay, we have a number of different goals. Are they all equal? And in most cases, they're not. And so one of the ways to understand the value and the importance of goals is to assign a weight to them. And that weight will identify where the importance of the goal falls for the organization. Then we said, okay, how are we going to measure these goals? How are we going to determine how the goal is going to be measured? So we have to measure each one of them. And then we'll need to create a performance goal for each measure. So we look for measures, and we have to look for a goal on those. And again, we'll go into detail on how we would do this. And then we're going to express the results of the achievement as meeting and exceeding expectations, meaning that if I accomplish my goal, what does it mean? What does meeting expectations mean in the organization? And if I go beyond that, what's the definition of exceeding expectations? So again, we're going to make it as easy and painless as possible for the organization to determine that I've achieved my goals, and it is in a higher level objectivity when it comes to determining if I'm meeting or exceeding them. Then we need to create a feedback system and tracking system. Another area where a lot of the goal programs fall apart is that there's no way of tracking them. There's no way of keeping on top of them and giving regular feedback to the organization and to the employees. So, and the last one, and then when you create the goal at the top level, then you cascade the goals down to all the levels of the organization. No one person in the organization is going to be able to accomplish all the goals, so you're going to move them down to each level, and each level is going to have certain level of responsibility for achieving those goals. So you're going to cascade them down to each level of the organization. If it can't be in some cases, it's to a team or a group of people who are responsible for certain parts of achieving the goal. There are certain types of goals that we need to identify. And goals should be then tightly tied to the mission and the vision statement. So if you're going to set goals, it needs to say it's going to support the mission of the organization. There are 3 types of goals. The first one is a strategic goal. The second one is what we call a tactical goal. And then the third one is operational goals. And so the strategic goals is going to be at the higher level, the top level of the organization. And it's not necessary to any one person or department. And it's usually set by the senior staff and with the board, usually the board or the board input on it. So then we looked at a number of types of strategic goals. And the first type of a strategic goal would be, your market standing, meaning that what market that you are currently operating in, and are you looking to expand that market or region? You could be providing services in the Lansing area, but you're wanting to provide those similar services to the Grand Rapids area. So that would be a market standing goal that you were wanting to expand in another area. Your goal of creating new products or new services would be your second one of a type of a goal. What services are you doing now, and this is the goal of providing additional services or new services. So that would be the second goal, type of a goal. And then we see what we call productivity goals, meaning your output, meaning how active are you providing services to your members or your clients, and are we able to provide additional services to them. Then the fourth one is how efficient are we using our physical assets as well as financial resources, and that could be how are we using our employees, our human resources. And in some cases, we have seen organizations that needed to improve on their staff on providing services to their clients, and it is usually measured based upon a number of what they call face time that they're providing with some of their clients. And so that was a goal with that organization on increasing the amount of face time. Additional strategic goal is revenue goals. And in a nonprofit, revenue would be revenue you're bringing in from your services, your revenue that you're bringing in from grants that you are receiving, or you have maybe a development campaign that you're bringing in funds to support your efforts. And then we see management, development, and performance goals. On looking at your staff and looking at their skills and upgrading skills and development of them, and getting them cross-trained and getting them able to do and handle more things. We have a large credit union that identified that they wanted to increase their skills of all their member services representatives in their branches. And the intent was a member would come into their credit union, and one of their member reps could be able to handle anything that the member needed. So that was a major step that they put together on upgrading skills. And since we were involved with that, we then changed that or tied that to a skill-based compensation system that became a very successful tool for them. Another goal that we look at is conduct of employees, their attitudes. And so there's organizations that may have a high turnover rate that says, we like to get our turnover rate down. We want to stop losing our people. Or they may have an absentee problem that they say, well, we need to get our employees to come to work more often. And then there's a lot of organizations will do employee engagement surveys that they will have their employees rate their organization, the supervisor, their work, and it usually has some kind of a scoring event. And frequently we will put that as a goal for the organization to increase or improve the employee satisfaction. And then the last one that we would look at is similar to the employee satisfaction would be customer or client satisfaction. A lot of organizations that we work with will run customer service client satisfaction surveys, and they are being held accountable both from the board level to how satisfied the customers are for the services that you're providing. So there's a number of different strategic goals that organizations will establish at the top level. From there, then we go down to what's called the tactical goal. And so after you look at your strategic goals, you say, well, how are we going to implement this? How are we going to take those goals and then move them down to the next level? So they indicate the level of achievement in the departments of the divisions. So the tactical goals must be supported by the strategic goals of the organization. For example, if a goal is for the organization is to reduce total cost by a certain percent, then each department is going to have a part of that is to also be able to reduce costs. We have a large multinational organization that needed to reduce costs of their products because they were losing bids. And so they had some major issues because they were not being able to obtain bids for the customers. And so they decided as a tactical goal was to move some of their engineering and development work to their operation over in India, and were able to lower costs that way. And then each department was given the challenge of taking some of their work and moving it to offshore to be able to reduce costs. Otherwise, they were not able to obtain and get awarded their contracts. So the operation goal is now the people that make it happen. And in the last example, it would be the engineering departments, individual ones that were literally looking at what they could do to support that goal of reducing cost in their products. So it moves it down to the third level. And if it really then focuses on individual responsibilities and duties of employees of what can we do to support the goal. Yeah, another example of a tactical goal is to reduce or increase return of assets by a certain percent, and then your sales department would have to get involved by increasing their sales to be able to do that. And so again, it's a way of moving the goal down to their level that they have the ability to affect it. To give you an example of how this is done, and this is a real life situation of a foundation that we work in, they had a strategic goal of increasing the foundation assets of about 5%. So in the tactical goal says, well, how are we going to do this? And so one of the ways that they would do that was they needed to get the word out. So they needed to make certain presentations to community groups and financial planners. So the tactical goal for this was they identified at least 50 community groups and financial planners that they need to make presentations to get the word out for annual giving and to write into their estate plan leaving money to the foundation. And then the operation goal, then the whole rest of the staff, the support team needed to identify who are we going to, the organizations, who are we going to make the presentations to, and then set up the presentations and get the in this case the CEO on the schedule to make presentations. So the goal was to increase the foundation assets. The tactical goal was we do this by making presentations and meeting with financial planners. And then the operation goal was the people who was going to make it happen or was going to basically set the schedule for the CEO to start making presentations. The next step in the process is said, okay, we have the goal. What's the value of that goal as it relates to other goals? And so we'll assign a weight to it. And the weight is a percent. And the percent describes the relative importance of that goal. Again, you're going to have a number of goals. They're not all going to be equal. Some are going to be more important or valuable than others. And by assigning weights, it shows the relative value of those goals. it will show the priorities that you agreed on when it comes to the importance of the organization. It's usually distributed on a base of 100%, and they're usually in 5% increments. So again, you need to identify the importance of goals, and you do it based upon assigning weights to them. Here's an example of another organization showing 4 of their key goals. One was to increase membership, and overall that was an important goal. So because they assigned it 40% to it, they needed to increase their revenue, and that was extremely an important goal. So they assigned 30% to it, and they wanted to develop a member service satisfaction survey to understand their feedback from the customers and clients, how well they are doing. And then the last goal was they wanted to develop a workshop for their members, and totally they were added up to 100%. But it provided a pretty much of a roadmap and identified where the importance were and where the organization needed to focus on. From there, they said, okay, how are we going to measure each goal? So we need to identify certain measures. And so measures are the yardsticks that we use to judge how well the goal is accomplished. General measures tell what is important as regards to the goal, and then we look at 5 basic measures of how we would measure a goal. The 5 categories, we start out with quantity. And quantity is how many, what's the rate, what's the volume. So if you have a goal of increasing revenue, what is that increase? What's the volume? What's the dollar amount? Or what's the percent we're going to be increasing? The second way that we look at measuring goals is the quality of them. How well are we going to do this project? How accurate? How complete it's going to be? So there's a quality type of a goal. And then the third way we would look at goals is, well, what does this cost? If we're going to put a program on, are we confined to a certain costs or an expenses for this? What are our limitations? What's the budget for that goal, for that program? So there's a cost to it. And then there's the fourth way we'll look at is a timeliness. If you're going to do a program, when is it going to be completed? What's the timeline on it? When do you want it, the results completed? What's the completion date? And the last way we look at measuring goals is a descriptive goal, meaning that it might be a hard goal to measure, but if we could describe the results on what it would look like when we accomplished, what people would say about what we did, we can define it in a descriptive way. So there's certain specific measures that we need to look at how we would look at goals. There are numeric measures when it comes to cost and dollar amounts and timeliness, and then there's descriptive measures that we use to evaluate the results of that goal. Again, who would be looking at, who would judge the results of it. Okay. The next part of it is that when we're measuring goals, we need to express it in terms of meeting and exceeding expectations. So we want to make it as easy as possible to say, have we accomplished our goal? If it is, what does the term mean when we meet it versus what term mean when we exceeded our achievements? So to give you an example, if you were to increase membership in a goal, meeting expectations would be, we would want a 4% growth, and this is an example, or 48 new members. So when it comes at the end of the time period, it's going to be very easy for your supervisor or the board to say, have you achieved this goal? Did you grow by 4% or 48 new members? And if we said, well, what's the exceeding expectation, meaning that, yeah, it's nice to have 48 new members, but it's certainly great if we can get 72 new members or a 6% growth. And so we advocate that you will identify both in meeting and exceeding expectations, so it makes it easier for someone to summarize and judge the results of it. Another example of meeting expectations for a goal of a member satisfaction survey is that, okay, we're going to develop the survey, and we want it developed by June 1st and implement it. In addition, that we want a satisfaction from our clients and customers of at least a 3.5 scale out of a 5. So we want a rating that, you know, they're satisfied, and so we're doing our job. So this, and in addition, this is meeting expectations. Well, that would be great, but it'd be nice to have the survey completed by April 1st of the year, and then have a satisfaction from our customers of 3.75 out of a 5-point scale. So again, it's very easy to recognize if we have accomplished our goal or not, and provide feedback to the board when it comes to judging this. To give you another example of the foundation, their goal was to increase their assets by 5%. So meeting expectations was 5%, but their stretch goal was to exceed it by 7%. Their tactical goal is that the staff needed to make connections with or identify 50 groups by so certain time of the year, and exceeding then would also then connect and make presentations with 60 of these groups by August of the year, a little bit earlier. The operational goal, the people that, you know, the support staffs, they were going to need to, again, identify who they're going to make the presentations to by a certain time of the year, and how many groups they were going to be contacting, both for meeting and exceeding expectations. They would have to increase their number of contacts to meet their exceeding expectations goal. Again, it's by doing this, it makes it very easy to identify the number of people or how we are doing our goals. From there, then, we are able to rate the goals. We need to summarize overall how are we doing. And again, we use goal attainment of a method or a foundation for paying out incentives. So we usually look at one of a number of ways of rating goals. And in this example, we have 4 different ways. So it's going to, if you have meeting and exceeding expectations, did I meet or achieve the goal? And if I didn't make either meeting or exceeding, then I did not make, I did not achieve my goal. The next way is, okay, if we could rate it for a level 2 if we met most of the goals. Not all of them, but we did a good job on them. We had maybe some situations that came up that prevented us from being successful. Then the third way is fully met our goals. Again, we define what meeting expectations is, and if that's the case, then we give that a 3. And then if we exceeded it by the definition, then we'd rate it a 4. So now we have a way of rating our goals, an easy 1 through 4 method. From there, then we take that goal, and then we're able to summarize it overall rating. So here's an example of 5 goals. Each one has a weight. So goal 1 was weighted 25%. We rated it 3 because it fully met their expectations when they achieved it. And then we just had a weighted score or a weighted rating, in this case 0.75. If you do this for all 5 goals, you're going to have a a scoring of anything 1.0 to 4.0 because that's your rating scale. And in this example, this organization came up with a 3.0 overall weighting of it. So we said, well, how did we do? Well, we did pretty good on our first three. The fourth one we had some difficulties on. We didn't make all the achievements. And the fourth one we knocked it out of the ballpark. We did it great. And so what does that mean? How do we summarize it? So we used a scale of 1 through 4. And in this case, it came out to a 3.0. From that standpoint, now we're able to tie it to some sort of a reward system. And the reward system, how we would do it, is break up the scale 1 through 4 and said, okay, if you overall scored 1.0 to 1.15, that means you didn't do too good in your goals. So if you were incentivized, you were not going to be receiving any sort of a incentive. However, if you were able to achieve some of your goals and the scoring came out to 1.5 to 2.0, then in this example, 10% of your bonus or your incentive could be a payout. So if you were eligible for a $10,000 incentive, you would get $1,000 for doing or achieving some of your goals. And so forth. It goes all the way down to if you achieved most of them or all of them, either over meeting or exceeding, you get 100% of your incentive or $10,000 if that's the case. When we do this with boards, especially nonprofit boards that are volunteers, they really appreciate this method. It makes their job of how do we reward our CEO, how do we reward the staff here easy. And it makes this very painless and very objective for them. If you're ever questioned by an outside organization on how you pay your executives and why you're giving your executives incentives or bonuses, this is the support documentation you have. This is supports that you didn't pull out numbers out of the air. You did it based upon some objective goals that support the mission, and by achieving certain results, a bonus was paid out that was provided for in the compensation philosophy and recorded in the board minutes. When the IRS does look at, or if they do look at how executives are being compensated in nonprofits, these are the things that they want to see to support and justify how compensation is being provided. And again, this goes along with our initial webinar on executive comp, on having a method and a process of setting executive compensation, and this supports that compensation or that method. Okay, the last part of goal setting is having a tracking system, meaning how are we going to track our goals, how we're going to track or how and give feedback to the staff and employees, how well are we doing. And so we need to have goals being tracked, and we need to have them summarized. And another reason why we created and developed our software program was to make the administration of goals easy and to track them. And a lot of the organizations that have goal programs, if they don't have an effective way of tracking them and providing feedback to the employees, they fail. They're not successful with their goal program. And so we built it into our system that it's there and it provides an easy way to administer. What we're going to do now is I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer Welch, who works with our organization, and she is the lead developer on the software and can provide you with how the software works, on how we handle our goal and objectives into the system. Jennifer?
Yes, thanks, Jim. And I just want to take a couple minutes here to talk about some of the key features that Constellation has in regards to the goals. And as Jim had mentioned, the measurement and tracking of the goals is just as important, if not more, than the creation of the goals themselves. So like we've mentioned before, part of our 3-part webinar series, we did review Constellation HR. So I believe that some of you may have been on that webinar. If not, this is just a quick overview of the goal section. Like Sarah had said, the full webinar is available, and if you had any additional questions, we'd be more than glad to do a one-on-one to address that. So let me go ahead here and just go over, we've got a goal library where employees and managers as well as corporations or organizations can create goals and brainstorm goals throughout the year to keep there. You can assign goals to employees either in a group or individually. Employees as well can participate in goal creation. All the goals can be weighted amongst themselves. And employees have their own login where they can go ahead and track goals, and then management can keep up to date on the tracking of the goals. So I'll just take a couple minutes to show you these features in the software itself. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see my screen here. So this is what when a manager logs in, they are greeted at their dashboard within the software. So we'll first take a stop here at the goal library. So the goal library is where the managers can go ahead and create goals. And when they create a goal, they will have to follow the same format that Jim mentioned in the presentation, where you have to describe meeting and exceeding expectations. So all of that would be then lined up and laid out for the employees so that everyone would be on the same page throughout the year. Let's see, so we have a couple of goals created here, like the goals that we discussed earlier in the PowerPoint with increasing membership and the growth rates. You can go ahead and delete goals or modify them too. So we like to use this as a place where managers can kind of brainstorm, because it's not easy to create goals, especially for your employees. So you can kind of brainstorm and then modify throughout the year before you need to assign them to your employees. As well as corporate goals. So there's one administrator for the account, and that administrator would then go ahead and work with who they needed to fill in corporate goals. The corporate goals can be seen and tracked by every employee. So we usually recommend organizations go in at least once a month, if not, or at least once a quarter, if not once a month, excuse me, and update how the organization is coming in regards to their corporate goals. So a lot of times those corporate goals is what's funding a bonus pool or the merit for the year. So that way the employees can know exactly how the organization is doing and how their work on their goals is affecting the corporate goals. So if we go back to the dashboard, you can, as a manager, assign goals to different employees at once. So let's say that you have 2 employees here, Beth and Jacob. They're both account managers. So instead of assigning individual goals, you could go ahead, click here,